This is Power Onward.
The podcast that unveils how power technology shapes your everyday life.
Estás escuchando Potenciando el Mundo, el podcast que te muestra cómo la tecnología energética transforma tu día a día.
Apa yang memberikan kekuatan dunia Anda?
Ito ang Power Onward.
Mit voller Kraft nach vorn.
This is Power Onward, the podcast that unveils how power technology shapes your everyday life.
On the outskirts of Columbus, Indiana, two sounds dominate the landscape. One is a buzzing beehive, the other, a buzzing engine, and both sounds have more in common than you might think. For Matt, that buzzing sound is more than just familiar. It's home. It's family. A third-generation Cummins employee, his story starts long before he clocked in on his first day. His grandfather, a World War II vet, managed test cells to QC each product before it went out to customers. His father spent nearly 50 years traveling the world and building a global IT system that connected Cummins across continents. And Matt? He once swore he'd never work there. But now he bleeds Cummins red. And in this conversation, you'll hear why. I'm Kim.
And I'm Matt.
Matt, you have an incredible family history with Cummins. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in 1942, my grandpa got out of the U.S. military and decided that he needed to do something to make a living, and he joined Cummins Engine Company. When he joined, Cummins was right in the middle of trying to figure out how to make our products much more reliable than they had in the past. And one way they decided to do that was to run every single engine that came off of that line in Columbus, Indiana on one of the dyno cells so that they could monitor the health of the engine before they ship it out the door to the customer. So his job for the whole time he worked there was to manage those test cells and make sure that the engines that were shipping out of that Columbus, Indiana factory to all of our customers met the quality requirements that they were setting standards for during that time.
So from the very beginning, it's always been about reliability, dependability, and giving the customers the best product.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we build our name on. You know, when you think back about when Klesse started doing that, first engine, the very thing that he did was started making tiny modifications to those old oil engines to make them more useful and to make that engine fit different applications, whether it be marine or an automobile or whatever it was. And from the time he started all the way up into 40s, even into today, we're still doing that.
Yep.
And with that same, passion and technical expertise that we've always done.
Exactly. The Klesse Cummins innovative spirit that's within all of us at Cummins, right?
Definitely.
Talk to me more about some of your early memories about your dad. Like you told me he traveled the world for so long. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, so my favorite story about my dad is kind of how he started at Cummins. So if you live in Columbus, Indiana, Cummins is a major employer and everybody wants to work there just because of the values that the company has. And he started working there straight out of high school. So he started, before he even graduated high school, he started. So Cummins out on Indianapolis Road, just west of town, when they're kind of in the very beginning of the computer age. Before anyone had personal computers, Cummins realized that we need to figure out a way to capture all this engineering data and use computers to our advantage. Mm-hmm. And they built an information center, or a data center is what they called it back at the time, on Indianapolis Road. And this was in the 60s, so late 60s, early 70s. And his first job was to program those computers, so taking engineering notes and files or whatever they wanted to load in that computer system. And the way they programmed those computers is they had a little 4-inch wide, 11 or 12-inch tall manila card, so like a manila folder, but it has lines on it. And his job was to punch out the ones and the zeros in those cards.
Manually punching them out.
Manually punching them out and entering them in that computer. So he would sit there all night long and punch those cards out from engineering notes and enter them in that computer. That's his first job at Cummins. And then that rolled into later being a systems analyst and getting really heavily ingrained into their IT department to eventually basically take all of these computer systems all across the world, Australia, China, India, everywhere that Cummins is, and to take that IT system and make it a one Cummins IT so that we can communicate across the oceans on the same platforms, no matter where our engineering teams
incredible.
Yeah. So growing up, I remember him being gone for months at a time.
Right.
Not really, I knew kind of the country he was going to, but I never really knew what he was doing or anything. And later on, I found out, that's going to these other countries and trying to communicate in foreign languages and trying to get IT systems all on the same page was an incredibly difficult task at the time. This was late 80s, early 90s when we finally decided to bring all that IT infrastructure under one roof.
And it makes it so easy for us now. Again, I've been with Cummins for about 2 years, and we have recurring meetings with, teams in China, teams in India, and a lot of that is made possible by your dad. Did you ever feel pressured to follow in their footsteps?
So some, but I didn't really want to work at Cummins when growing up in Columbus, Indiana.
Yeah.
My grandpa worked there, my dad worked there, my aunts, uncles, everybody in the family worked at Cummins.
Wow.
So I kind of had this, teenage rebellious piece where
Totally.
I'm not going to go work where the rest of my family does.
Exactly.
And I was really interested at that time in kind of like gasoline, high performance, so racing. My brother and I mud raced for years, and that's really where our passion was, off-road racing, mud racing. So I went to college, and after college, this is how I started working at Cummins, by the way, kind of like my dad started. But
Yeah.
after college, I sent out tons of resumes, like 150-ish resumes, to any high-performance company that I can find, whether it be like NASCAR, Top Fuel, off-road racing, whatever it was. I got about 130 of those back, and every single one of them says, hey, if you come volunteer for us, we will see how you perform. And if, 6 months to a year, whatever that time frame is, if you're successful, then we'll hire you on.
Oh, my gosh.
So-
and now you're probably thinking, volunteer,
I'm like,
6
how
months
am I
to a
gonna do this?
year?
Yeah, so I
Right.
go to my dad and I'm like, hey, Dad, I got this great opportunity. I can go volunteer to be on one of these racing teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to see if you can help me. I've got to stay paying these student loans.
Right.
So can you front me student loans for 6 to 8 months until I get a foothold on this? And his words to me were, Cummins is hiring.
Wow. Took you right back to the spot you didn't want to go.
Absolutely. So I started in Cummins in what they call the rapid serve area then. And this is really kind of where the bug bit me to staying working at Cummins, because at that time, Cummins was still, very personal on a support level. And they've always had a very personal relationship with their customers to try to support them in the best way they can.
Right.
And at that time, any customer or dealer that had a problem with their truck would call into this phone line. And guys like me that are very technical and know the product intimately would help them troubleshoot that product over the phone and actually document it. So if it's under warranty, we would file a warranty claim for them, help them troubleshoot whatever they need.
Wow.
Right on the phone. So that was my first job at Cummins.
So you have a knack for problem solving is what I'm hearing.
I do. Yeah, that's I guess my God-given gift at the end of the day. Everybody has one.
But how do you approach these challenges as, the customers are calling you? Like, how do you even begin to navigate that?
Yeah, so usually I'll set up a scenario here. Usually the customers, their trucks are running down the road every day, or they find something at a maintenance event that concerns them. And they'll either take it to a shop or they'll bring it to their own shop and try to diagnose the problem either in-house or in a local dealer or distributor. And usually when I find out about it, it's been diagnosed to a point to where nobody's like, oh, what do we do now?
We're
like
stuck.
We've reached the end of the diagnostic tree. What do we do?
Okay.
So then I get involved and start using my knowledge from the years of experience and to try to help them navigate through that process. And whether it be in warranty or out of warranty, the other thing is it may lead to a problem that if we couldn't duplicate in a test cell, right? We talked about the quality and running the engines earlier, right? Sometimes no matter how much engineering you do, when you put a product into the field, you can't duplicate every scenario across the world.
Right.
So,
The climates, the environment.
and then the OEM puts the engine in there, and they may run wires different or fuel lines different. Every one of them's a little bit different. So you can't duplicate everything. And my job is to take that truck or whatever that problem is and help that customer diagnose it to get it back on the road as fast as we possibly can. And I've got personal relationships with every one of my customers. So whether it be a vice president of maintenance or a director of maintenance, all the way down into several technicians will call my cell phone if they have a problem.
That is so cool. That really just rings true to our distributed business unit and how we take each of these problems personally. Like, we're here to solve it. We're good partners along the way. And I feel like you're kind of the paradigm, the archetype of why that is.
Absolutely.
What does it take to earn trust with massive fleet accounts? You mentioned, Swift, night transportation. A lot of this, probably this problem solving and the technical support you're providing, but what else is there?
Yeah, so a lot of it is in a business. If you go out and you buy a product, it's a lot of the decisions that you use to make that purchase is, do I trust this company or do I think it's a good company to purchase from? And at the end of the day, If you think about these large customers, they're buying, thousands of trucks a year, and they're putting their trust in our product that we're going to be there. And not only our product, but they know that there's going to be a guy like me, whether a technical support engineer or an account executive or someone from Cummins that they can reach out to get help to support that product. So no one on this earth makes a perfect product. We know that there's going to be issues. And the biggest problem I think a lot of people have when they buy a product is, and this is one of the quite big, huge buying decisions we all think about is, hey, if I spend all this money and I buy this product, is somebody at that company going to support me? Can I call and get some help? Whether it's warranty, whether it's a question about maintenance or just a general conversation. And the way I know that my customers trust me is when you get one of those directors or you get one of those vice presidents and they call you up on the phone and they don't want to talk about anything else other than their kids, how they're doing in school, their wives, how was your weekend, what'd you do this, just general,
on a personal level, right?
It's a personal conversation, and they never ask you a question about technical. They just want to call and talk to you about something different. That's how I know that my customers trust me, and they know that no matter what happens, I'm going to be there to represent Cummins to make sure that that product is taken care of.
Matt, you have a very unique hobby, I would say, and that has to deal with beekeeping. How did you get into beekeeping?
So I had some problems with seasonal allergies years ago. And social media nowadays, you can scroll through and see all kinds of stuff. And I just happened to be scrolling through, and I saw a video on how the pollen and the honey and other things that bees produce can stop seasonal allergies. So I decided that I wanted to step into it. And then one of my friends at work, co-worker friends, I guess however you want to call it, had started beekeeping as well. So he and I started having conversations and we got interested in it. And the more we started talking, I asked, hey, what do I need to do to get bees? And we started on this journey together. And so now we both keep bees. We're still in contact and we take very good care of our hives. And we still learn off each other today. I think, it started off with this allergy thing, but just like Cummins and these technical problems that happen all the time, beekeeping is one of those hobbies that you never stop learning. There's always something new that comes in. So
I can see why that fascinates you, as you are someone who always loves to keep learning.
Absolutely. So just like the engines, right? As technology moves on, I'm always learning the new technology and trying to keep up with it, and it keeps my brain going every day. Then after you've had a day of full work and you need to do something different, I usually go out my back door, go walk through the back field and go check on my bees. And then I can sit there and still keep my brain moving and work in that beehive and really understand something completely different. And it kind of brings me back to earth, right? It just,
literally.
It's a very satisfying hobby, to say the least. Yeah.
Tell me about the parallels between beekeeping and engines.
So me traveling all the time, going to see these customers, I was driving south on I-65 one day and going to do a customer visit. And I just got done taking care of my bees the day before. And as I'm driving down, I hear the sound of the engines buzzing down the road, right? And I kind of put this correlation together where I thought, you know what? This is eerily similar to engines and bees. And I never really put this together before. And the way I look at this is if you break down into a beehive, there's all the forager bees go out, right? And they're buzzing, and that's the sound that you hear. And what they're doing is they're going out and they're getting pollen, they're getting nectar, they're getting water, and they're bringing it back to that hive, transporting products from nature back into that hive to support the whole colony's health and life cycle. And then so I'm sitting here driving down the road knowing how this beehive works, and I'm thinking, you know what? Cummins engines are doing the exact same thing as that bee is for population. I mean, there's not a store out there that doesn't have a product in it that wasn't transported by a truck. And the same thing in that beehive. There's not a product in that beehive that bee didn't go get somewhere and bring it back to that hive. And those similarities just kind of struck me. And so then you start thinking about some of our new products like our X15N and what we're doing for hydrogen and a lot of these other things to keep the environment clean. And I start tying this together. I'm thinking, we've got these engines that take hydrocarbons out of the atmosphere that would normally just be released, right? And we're capturing those and we're burning them into our engines to make power to go down the road. And we're basically cleaning the air. And by doing that, we're benefiting these bees that are in that hive and making them healthier than they ever have before. So it's like a whole life cycle of, we need bees to go pollinate all of the the trees and the plants that we do. 75% of the vegetables and the food that we eat are all pollinated by bees.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah. So if you think about what we're doing with our engines to produce less pollutants in the atmosphere, we're actually helping those bees, which in turn they will be able to pollinate all these plants and bring that back into us. It's just this amazing life cycle. Yeah.
This is one of the most interesting things I've ever heard here at Cummins. It is probably one of my favorite conversations. I had a chance to speak with Matt prior to recording this episode, and I got goosebumps. And it took me from seeing bees as like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, to like, wow, they really do provide so much to us. And now I cannot unhear the similarities between the bees buzzing and the hummings of the engine.
Yeah, it's eerily similar. And it's, they both work for us, and we have to kind of cohabitat. If we don't have trucks, we don't have products in our stores. And if we don't have bees, those bees can't pollinate the products that those trucks produce or that they bring to our stores every day. It's this hand-in-hand, full circle nature piece that just amazes me every time I think about it.
So we talk a lot about trucking applications and transportation. Tell me more about other Cummins applications.
Cummins is renownedly known for the automotive industry. Everybody, like we've seen in previous podcasts where we talk about that Cummins emblem on the side of the truck, right? And the persona that Cummins has out there is in North America specifically is mostly automotive because everybody sees it. But when you think about, you're driving down the interstate and you see a construction site on the side of the road, or you see a farm tractor or something, and you don't really put two and two together and tell, wait a minute, Cummins could make, they put engines in these trucks, but they're in that farm tractor, they're in that excavator, they're in that dump truck, they're in everything that we use today to make society what it is. Inner city, out in the country, boats and marine. So we have a huge market in the marine industry. So one of my favorite things to do on a weekend when I need to get out is go down to the Ohio River and watch the barges go up and down the river. It's one of those things on a Sunday afternoon when the blue skies and the sun shining and it's just a little bit of a breeze, perfect weather to go down and just watch those barges move material up and down the river. And there'll be several 100,000 tons of material on those barges. Wow. And one barge with Cummins engines in it is taking that, whatever they're transporting, it's coal or grain or gravel, or the possibilities of what they transport is endless. And they'll go all the way from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up into Indiana's clear over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all on a boat, and they're moving just mass quantities of it. And that boat most likely has a Cummins engine in it as well, or two of them, depending on how they're set up.
We don't get to talk a lot about the marine portion. I don't think I get to see them. We're in the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
But from a global impact, that standpoint.
They're everywhere. And then we also, in Seymour, Indiana, just 20-minute drive south of Columbus, we build some of what we call our high-speed, high-horsepower engines. And those engines go in trains and mining equipment, and some of those are even in marine engines as well. I mean,
is that strictly in the United States, or
they get shipped all over the world from that little plant in Seymour, Indiana?
That is that's another fun fact.
It is, and they go from 45-liter, 60-liter, and even a 95-liter engine out of there. So you think X15 liter, 15 liter is our X15 product in the over-the-road truck. They're building 95-liter engines out of that Seymour, Indiana plant and trucking them using a 15-liter engine probably somewhere, and then delivering that to a boat builder or a heavy machinery equipment builder or a farm tractor, generators, and hospitals. So you think about what happens if the power grid goes down. Just like we talked about previously in those other podcasts about concerts and things and how we power those concerts if the power goes out, right? Hospitals are the same way. These engines are tucked away in a back room of a hospital somewhere and no one ever sees it. And as soon as the power goes out, it's ready 24/7, 365 for years to support that hospital. I mean, how important is that, right? We've got all these critical patients in a hospital, and they
truly life or death.
They trust our engine and our generator set in that hospital to power the whole hospital in case of a catastrophic event where they lose power. And to me, when you really break down all the applications that we're in, if Cummins wasn't here today, I have to ask the question, right? Where would society be without the power that Cummins provides with all these critical infrastructure pieces? Could we build highways? Could we have a hospital that if we're in and we're sick and we really need it, to have power regardless of what our power grid does. I mean,
Right.
if you really get down and start deep thinking about it, it's incredibly important.
I also think about, as a millennial, think about the digital infrastructure. We talked about,
Absolutely.
data centers and generator sets, keeping those up and running.
Absolutely.
I don't know. That is a very scary question. Where would society
Where would
be?
society be without that power that Cummins produces every day? And I'll go back and I'll think about my grandpa, that when he was fighting in World War II, many of the trucks, tractors, personnel carriers, amphibious vehicles that they went on to the beaches and things with, most of those were powered with Cummins engines. And then when he came out of World War II, he started to work at Cummins, taking care of the engines that transported our troops, that allowed us to be successful in World War. So when you get back and you really think about the importance of Cummins and the impact that it's had on society and everything that it has done for us, it amazes me every time. And one of the favorite things I do is, as a technical support manager for national accounts, our customers like Cummins garb, like hats and shirts and
Oh,
things,
yeah,
right?
of course. Got to have the merch.
Yeah, and so one of the things I do is I talk about the Cummins red ball logo. It's the red ball with the black stripe that comes across that.
Yep.
This says Cummins Engine Company. We're all familiar with it. That logo came out the same year my grandpa started working at Cummins Engine Company. And
Wow.
it's amazing. It is amazing. And then from there, we transferred over to, and this is not as well known, but we used to have a blue Cummins
I
C
know.
with the white letters.
Now, is that the Paul Rand era?
Paul Rand era, yeah.
Yes. As the global brand manager, I have this weird fixation on the Paul Rand era
Yeah.
because it is so different. It's so unique. And I look at some of our old reports
Yeah.
in the Heritage Center. It is really cool to see the evolution of Cummins brand.
Yeah, so today you see that Cummins C, right? And you always talk about, people respect that and they see that and they instantly think of quality, right?
Yes.
And that quality started all the way back when Klesse first started building that engine, and he created that logo and the Cummins name. And it has just been transitioned through all of these different areas, whether it's, the old NH and NT engines, all the way up to the infamous N14. That thing is a tank, right? Everybody wanted a truck that had an N14 engine in it because they knew if their truck had that engine in there, it was going to go, and it would go millions of miles. And that's when it really took off for the automotive space.
Ah, I see.
And we started, that's where Cummins got their name. You see a lot of the old movies, Smokey and the Bandit and,
Oh my gosh.
and all of these, they're Cummins engines. And that's how in history people get to know that Cummins engine and trust its reliability because of all of the things that it was in. And
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forget about the national parks and how our trucks
Yes,
are there.
They are. So anything, street sweepers,
Mm-hmm.
dump trucks, earth movers, graders, anything, fire trucks.
Yes.
So when we have wildfires out west or wherever they are in the United States, most of those trucks are probably powered by a Cummins engine.
What about delivery trucks then?
Delivery trucks, UPSs, FedExes, DHLs,
Wow.
the Postal Service, all uses Cummins engines to power the mail that we get in.
If only we
delivered
could
every day.
see that Cummins emblem on everything. Because
Oh, it would
I
be.
feel like that would really be the eye-opening experience. Because again, I was born, raised, based in Indiana, but I didn't know about Cummins until
Right.
I was much older. And this morning, it's 4:45 a.m. I'm on my way to the gym, and at the stoplight next to me, you know what it is, right? It's a
Yep.
Ram truck.
It's a Ram truck.
And I see that Cummins diesel logo, and I'm
Absolutely.
thinking to myself, like, yep, I feel a little bit more energized. I may not need my pre-workout this morning.
Right. And when I first started working at Cummins, there was a guy that I worked with right next to, and he was the original engineer that developed our B Series engine. And sitting there next to him, he was 65, 70 years old at that time and still working at Cummins. And he was taking those phone calls, helping people diagnose after he had spent his entire career working on developing and engineering that B Series engine. He's a guy like me where he's, on the weekends, he's out tinkering on his truck, or he's out working on his fishing boat, getting it ready to go, or he's helping his wife do some construction project on his house. He's just really good with his hands, and he has that mentality that it takes to really understand and consistently improve and consistently design things that maybe don't even exist, right? It's if your wife has hey, I would like this cabinet, or I'd like this picture, or whatever, those really handy people can build some of the things that we see on TikTok or whatever. They're custom building these things. And those are the kind of people that design stuff like that B Series engine in today. And One of the most important things when I talk to people about B-Series engine is we've all seen these going down the interstate too, or the hotshot trucks. And hotshot truck is basically a pickup truck that has a flatbed trailer, or they're pulling a camper or somewhere, right?
Right.
Those products used to be transported on semi-trucks, maybe 2 campers on a trailer or whatever, or some other way of transport, usually on a semi or a train or something. When the B-Series got put in that Dodge pickup, all of a sudden that truck became reliable enough to be able to transport products that to be used more in a commercial atmosphere instead of just a Ford pickup or a Dodge pickup or a Chevy pickup being used on a farm somewhere. Now it's all of a sudden reliable enough to trust it to drive from New York to LA or up in the Minnesota to all the way to Florida to transport something that is smaller than what is transported on a semi-truck. So it's a game changer.
Yeah.
You see them transporting cars from car dealerships.
Oh, yeah.
So think about Carvana and some of these other car sales places that will literally ship a car to your house.
Yep.
Most of those are probably transported with a B-Series Cummins engine. Or, 20 years ago, you would have to go to a dealer lot and physically go and show up and get that car and drive it home.
Right.
And now, because of some of our smaller engines that are out there that are so reliable and so well-renowned, you can get one delivered right to your house.
That is incredible. I've never even thought about those other,
Absolutely.
the B engine, Carvana. There's so much more out there than just the semis on the highway that we always think about.
It's everywhere. Everyone that I know that works in the technical side of Cummins has a knack. Some people are IT because we need to be able to not only run our computer programs that we all work on every day on our laptops or a PC or a phone, but the other side of this is the engines are all electronically controlled today. So they're electronic injectors, electronic turbo actuators, and it's controlled by an engine control module. And inside that engine control module, there's more code and more technology in that control module than what was used when we landed on the moon the first time.
What?
So when you're sitting in one of these vehicles, you could literally take that ECM and you hold it in your hand, and just in that control module, there's more technology in that control module than when we landed on the moon.
That is incredible.
Most people don't realize how technically advanced they are and how far that has come over the years. So if you're really good at writing programming, you could literally be writing the programming that goes in that ECM to make this engine super efficient and produce less emissions and more power and more torque and integrate it within that vehicle. So you're talking the touch screens and the digital dashes with the oil change reminders and the maintenance reminders, tire pressures. All of that is integrated into the data links of that vehicle, and it all communicates to that ECM. So somebody in Cummins is sitting there where, they liked electronics, they liked writing programming, they liked, sitting there typing all the zeros and ones out to make it work.
It beats manually punching him in, that's for sure.
It does. It manually punching him in like Dad did it back in the day. And so somebody's sitting there and writing all that and putting all of this technology in those ECMs, and we're sitting in the driver's seat every day not realizing the amount of work and the amount of knowledge that went into that programming inside of those computer chips in that ECM to make our vehicles the way they operate today and all of those conveniences.
That's what it kind of comes down to. It's the convenience factor. We talk about accessing everything on our computers, our tablets. It's all at our fingertips now, but we don't think about all the work that goes in behind it.
Right.
And I really appreciate you taking time to share your story and, again, just showcase the impact, the vast impact, the global impact that Cummins has.
Absolutely. I thank you for having me. It's been a great time. Thank you.
We hope to have you again.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. So what's the big idea for this episode? Purpose, legacy, and innovation fuel something so much bigger than we can imagine. Like we've witnessed with Matt's story, 3 generations of one family each leaving their mark on a company that powers the world. And like bees quietly pollinating the earth, people like Matt keep things moving, not for recognition, but because it's in their DNA. Legacy isn't just something you inherit. It's something you live into, something you live by. And when it's powered by purpose, it keeps the world turning and keeps us grounded in what matters most. It's people.
Ini adalah
Power Onward.
あなたの毎日に影響を与える
comment la technologie de l'énergie membentuk kehidupan harian Anda.
Thank you for listening to Power Onward. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. If you want to dig deeper on what we covered today, check out the show notes for additional links or go to cummins.com/podcast. Until next time, power onward. We're from Cummins, the company that's been innovating toward the future for more than 100 years. We're no strangers to rapid change, global shifts, and economic uncertainty. We want to be your constant during the energy transition. Whenever, wherever, forever. Power onward.